to continue rolling the way it has.
Well, I don't know if you listened to much of Stephen Pearl's press conference, and we're going to in a moment, but that was one of the things that he alluded to. When he had kind of a message for fans, he said, today is a day for fans to celebrate because of the retention of this staff.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bruce Pearl is going to go assume a position as an administrative role, so to speak, under the athletic director, kind of be an ambassador for the school, which
Absolutely.
I think fits him perfectly. I mean,
Yeah.
he has a lot of energy left, just doesn't want to coach anymore. Okay, cool. But I think that Stephen Pearl, and you'll see in a moment, but he speaks so highly of the people that helped build that program.
Right.
And that is the guys that are going to continue to be on that staff. And that is huge when it comes to retaining your current roster. Because
Right.
obviously the transfer portal situation after a coaching change, even if it's somebody with the same last name, and then just wanting to continue the similar streak of success that we have seen the Auburn Tigers in the last couple of years. So let's take a listen to a few minutes of Stephen Pearl's introductory press conference there today on the Plains.
All right. Yeah, there's only one way to get this thing started, and War Eagle. War Eagle. Thank you all for being here this morning. I wanted to start by thanking our president, all right, Dr. Chris Roberts, our athletics director, John Cohen, our sport administrator, Janan Paul, the rest of John's executive staff, and the board of trustees for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be the head coach of this prestigious program. It's an honor to lead this university and this program into the next chapter of Auburn basketball. I've been preparing for this moment my entire life. You know, the last 16 years, I've been in every aspect that is college basketball. I played at the University of Tennessee, not very well, but I did play at the University of Tennessee as a player, as a student athlete. And then I started my journey here at Auburn in 2014. I started out as an assistant strength coach under Damon Davis. I worked my way up to director of basketball operations, was then promoted to assistant coach, and then was promoted to associate head coach and our defensive coordinator. That journey has shaped how I lead, how I listen, and how I build. It's given me a front row seat to the principles of what have made this program so successful, and that perspective, I plan to carry them forward with purpose. Listen, I fully understand the weight of this opportunity. I embrace it with gratitude, humility, and resolve. I know it comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility, okay? It's a different level of expectation, and it's a gold standard that Bruce Pearl has brought to this fine institution and this fine basketball program. It's given me a front row seat, okay, and it's given me the perspective I need to carry them forward. I will go to work every single day with the focus and the determination to reward you all for allowing me the opportunity of a lifetime to lead this program. I am here to rise to the moment. There's going to be a lot of thank yous, all right, so bear with me, because I would not be sitting here if it weren't for so many people in and out of this room. I want to start by thanking my wife, Brittany. It takes a special woman to be a head coach's wife, to just be a coach's wife. It does take an even more special woman to be my wife. Thank you for making my life so easy. Thank you for being my courage when doubt creeps in. Thank you for making the hardest days feel like something we can conquer as long as we're together. But most importantly, thank you for being Lainey's mom. I love you, and I can't wait to continue this journey together. Think about life's greatest moments, all of us. What's made them more special? It's when you share them with family. It's when you share them with close friends. I'm so fortunate that I have my family in this room today. It's made this moment for me that much more special, and it's one I'll never forget. But I'm not only blessed with an incredible family, I have such an unbelievable network of friends, mentors. A lot of those are sitting in this room right now. In the 11 years that I've been at Auburn, I've been so blessed to create so many new friendships, so many new people that I look up to, and so many new mentors. I love each and every one of you, and I'm so excited that we get to continue this journey together. They told me I got to smile more, and I'm over here crying. BP, we have literally been together since day one. Literally. You and my beautiful mother, Kim, who made the trip down here from Knoxville. I love you very much, Mom. Thank you for being here. Welcomed me into the world in Iowa City, Iowa, and I've been a coach's kid ever since. Growing up, I was so lucky and fortunate, and coaches' kids get to do something that not a lot of people get to do. They get to go to work with their dads and do something really fun and really cool. I got to grow up watching him be in his element. I got to grow up in Evansville, Indiana, when he was at the University of Southern Indiana, and I would go to Pack Arena with him, and I would watch him with his shirt off, which I should have known that this was going to be a trend moving forward, lifting with the players in the weight room, out bench pressing a lot of his guys. You know, I watched his daily interactions with fans and treating them as if they were family. I watched him take and make phone calls almost daily to just complete strangers, cancer patients, just offering them encouragement and trying to give them another reason to fight, or people just going through any sort of hardship just to love on him a little bit. I watched him be involved in every aspect of his program, no matter how small the detail or how small the impact. I remember when we were at Milwaukee, very early in his tenure there, we left the Klatsche Center. We went over to the student cafeteria, and I had no idea what we were doing. I'm like, all right, maybe we're going to have lunch. We walk in the building, and this lunatic gets up on a lunch table and starts screaming at the students, encouraging them to come to the Klatsche Center to watch a basketball game. And obviously, famously at Tennessee, when he showed up with his shirt off and his chest painted for Coach Summit and the Lady Vols. I saw Coach Vickers here. Don't get any ideas, brother. That ain't happening. At the time, I thought this was normal. I thought this is what every head coach did. I thought it was the norm. I thought it was the standard. But quickly after getting into this profession, I realized something really quickly. It's what has made him what's made him special. It's what's made him unique. And like John said, it's what's made him a Hall of Famer. It's made you one of the best basketball coaches in the history of this game. The 5 years I played for you, the 11 years I've been under your wing have been some of the best years of my life. We've won 367 games together, 18 of those being in the NCAA tournament. We've won 7 SEC championships, and we've been to 2 Final Fours together. I can put a number on those accomplishments, but I can't begin to quantify what I've learned from you to prepare me for this moment.
There's really, really, really strong words there from Stephen Pearl.
Yeah.
And I mean, he is somebody who is not new to the media. And he's spoken at every single tournament run. We've done several interviews.
Yeah.
But to see him in this light, in a very much deserved position, I think. I mean, the guy has paid his dues. He's paid his time. Nothing's been handed to him. And then to kind of pay it back by thanking his dad and talking about his wife. I mean, that to me, it was very touching, very, very well done. And what a really, really special day there on the Plains.
We in the media, and every now and again, will, when it comes to these introductory press conferences, we do this silly thing, in my opinion, that is like win the press conference. Did you win the press conference?
Yeah.
And typically what it is, it's a really bad team you're taking over. You're trying to win over a fan base to make it right. This is a fan base that's used to winning, and he's doing 2 things. He's paying homage to his father, who, in my opinion, like he said, is a Hall of Famer. And at the second time, too, he's also letting the Auburn fans know, hey, we're still doing this. And I'm going to say he knocked this thing out of the park, because it's so special, because he is getting not only to take over for a great coach, just like we saw in Alabama, but he's doing it with a special touch, because it is his father that he's taking over for. And there's a lot of those same, he obviously is clearing those lines of distinction of like, hey, there's going to be a lot of the same things that my dad had, but he's one of one, and don't expect me to do everything the way he did it.
Yeah, and I love that. He was very reassuring. If we could play the entire press conference, and one of the things that he said in there was, like I mentioned a minute ago, is like this is a day for Auburn fans to celebrate, retaining the staff. That a lot of the things in terms of the winning tradition, he feels strongly is going to remain. And I think one of the biggest things that I took away was a huge emphasis on gratitude. It was like I think he feels like he has earned the right to be in that chair, while also making it known that he's really grateful to be in that chair too. That he doesn't take lightly the responsibility that comes with taking over a program that's been to the Final Four twice in the last 6 years. I mean, like, I just looked down at the year to make sure I was right on that, because it's 2019 and this past season.
Right.
So there's been a huge history of success, but you hear 300 some wins and across their tenure together. I mean, that's a lot. And quite frankly, if Stephen Pearl had a different last name, Stephen Pearl is probably the head basketball coach somewhere else already right now.
Right.
I mean, he's probably 100%. He's probably not going to be his dad's longtime assistant. He probably would have left for at some point if that's some other guy working under Bruce Pearl.
Yeah, no question. And I really liked he brought up their journey, and what I liked about it is Bruce Pearl kind of did it in the old-fashioned way. You know, started at a D2 college.
Yeah.
You're on top of lunch tables begging kids to go to basketball games in these gyms that hold 12 people in them. But Stephen was right there.
Yep.
And he goes to Tennessee. And at Tennessee, the women's program is bigger than the men's program.
Yeah.
And he supports.
Bought in. Yep, absolutely.
He supports with one of the greatest women's coaches of all time in Pat Summitt. So it just feels like every step of the way, you know, he's done it. He's been there. It's an unorthodox journey, but I think he deserves that seat just as much as he does.
Yeah, Gerhard, yesterday you alluded to some of the guys that have played under Stephen Pearl, that have developed under Stephen Pearl. He was the defensive coordinator, so to speak. I think in basketball, I didn't really think about it like that because it's just a game that is so fluid. But we're going to find out really, really quickly kind of what Auburn basketball looks like under Stephen Pearl. I don't think it's going to look much different. However, when you're in the chair, you got to make the calls. You have to decide when to take time out. You got to decide, how you're going to defend a guy. You have to do the game prep and all of that. Obviously, he's watched that for a long time, and he probably had a huge hand, even bigger than what we can even discuss.
No question.
How big of a hand he had in that. At the end of the day, Bruce Pearl commanded something out of players that it's going to take just some time because right now you have guys who are freshmen to seniors that played under your dad and played under you. But you're going to have to go now taking be the head recruiter, meaning as the head coach.
Right.
Be the guy who now is kind of, hey, all right, this is my program, put your stamp on that program. And they're going to find out really, really quickly just how good it can be. Because if you look at this game slate in terms of some of the notable games for Auburn going into this year, look at that first one.
Woo, wow.
I mean, well, actually, look at all of them.
Yes,
but look at the first one. And then Michigan. Then Purdue doesn't get, and then you go into the SEC slate.
That is a gauntlet right there to start out the season, but you nailed it. Like, he now has to wear a kind of different hat where, yes, off the court, he is Mr. Recruiter guy.
Yeah.
But then when you get on the court, you know, if it's the under 16 timeout and your star guy has got two fouls, you take him out. Do you leave him in? Like, it's all those smaller things that he's going to have to manage. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how he does that from now going from the assistant coach's role to the head coach's role.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like no different than the three of us sitting at this table. We all have a different role.
Yep.
And when one of us isn't here and I'm trying to be Patrick, well, we've seen how that goes. I mean, it's certainly something. And when y'all try to be me, well, throw in the towel. I'm just kidding. But the point remains, when you have to go we all see each other do it all day, and we mesh together so well, and it's a fun show to do. And that coaching staff, they meshed together. They knew who was going to be doing what, how to game prep what, who watches this. I mean, playing college basketball, you sit there and you know who is sitting there talking about the scout, who is handling the people inside. And men's basketball is slightly different, but the roles change, the dynamics change. I mean, is it going to be perfect right off the bat? Probably not.
No, probably not. But the thing is about college basketball, it's super forgiving. Like, you can lose 10 games and still make the conference tournament. And once you're in the field of 68, it's win 6 games or win 7 games. So it is more forgiving. So it's not as much of a microscope on each and every game. But I do think that they will take this challenge kind of head on as you move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at some of the coaching turnover, guys like Roy Williams stepping down, Jim Boeheim stepping down. The first year hasn't been great, and when you look at Syracuse, Red Autry, he hasn't really had a great start to his tenure at all.
It's hard to do,
But I think it helps in Auburn's case that Stephen is a Pearl.
Oh, yeah.
So he knows exactly what Bruce wants. He knows exactly how he ran the program. And I mean, it's a little different when you hire an assistant that isn't your son. They might know the program,
Sure,
but they're not your son.
Yeah.
So there's that added benefit in it.
Yeah, like Stephen Pearl said, I've been with you since day one, literally. So, and he has. He balanced the funny and the just gratefulness and the determination of what this job is going to be really, really nicely.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think for a lot of people who will just, I think it's a very lazy argument to just throw out nenepotism out there. It's like, oh, well, if he's
I don't
Pearl,
think that. I don't do that at all. Yeah.
And I hope that's not the national thought point because to me it is a little ridiculous to have that. But to me, the way I compare it is to what Duke did with John Shire and Coach K.
Yeah.
Coach K leaves. He picks a player who'd been with them side by side, and then John Shire goes in and takes over that program. Obviously had a great year last year.
Yeah.
I think this is more similar to that than just somebody being handed something. And like I said, we're in it because we're in the state of Alabama. So obviously we know it, and we know Stephen Pearl. You know Stephen Pearl personally. But and I hope that becomes the overall reigning narrative. Sometimes it just takes wins and losses in order to get there. But that's just my hope for college basketball.
And one thing I think that this speaks to is that when a guy gets an opportunity, or a female, or whoever, they also throw out some quotes from other people that are in like similar situations. And one that was notable to me was Todd Golden, who had a really, really nice quote about Stephen Pearl and his impact. They're not only their friendship, which honestly they both just like look alike. Like the eye test wise, they're young. They both wear skinny jeans. Like I mean, whatever. Like I mean, there's a lot of things that right now is very relatable to college basketball players, and so that helps you win. I mean, Todd Golden just cut down nets, so I just think that he kind of signed off on him, and I think that certainly helps, especially given the fact that it's in the Southeastern Conference.
And those two guys that kind of they hit the grindstone together. They were under Bruce Pearl, so they were doing all the dirty jobs and all the stuff that you don't see.
Yeah.
With all those college basketball coaches,
like sweeping floors and stuff.
Yes.
Something that coaches do that you don't actually know that you actually got to do.
And Todd Golden had to do that being under Bruce Pearl. Stephen Pearl had to do that being under Bruce Pearl. So they had to go through it together. And so for a championship coach who now has minted himself as one of the great ones in the country, and Todd Golden to give that stamp of approval to Stephen Pearl, I hope is just another vote of confidence in a good way for the new Auburn basketball coach.
Yeah, guys, hour two rolling right along here on Southeast Sports Plus. Talking about college basketball. We're going to transition back to football here in just a minute. And when we come back, we're going to go to Fayetteville to check in with our guy, Trey Dare. What is going on with the Hogs? They got a basketball coach over there. He's pretty decent. We'll talk about Arkansas and much more here in 2.5 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus on this Thursday afternoon. A lot to chat about as we enter week 5 of the college football season. One of the biggest games that will take place this weekend is happening in Oxford, of course, where Ole Miss will welcome in LSU, 2 undefeated teams looking for what could be a season-changing win in the Southeastern Conference. And to chat about that and to continue our conversation about Lane Kiffin, want to welcome in a good friend of the show, Mike Sadie, joining us from Memphis. Mike, good to see you, man. It's been a minute. It was funny because our mutual friend Chris Priest just texted me about you the other day, and it's good to see you, man. Live and in color. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus.
I know. Over the past few months, I've seen a lot of Simone Eli with everything you did during the basketball tournament for next door. So love that. But great to be on the show. I was with Gerhard and Patrick last week.
Yep.
And by the way, guys, I told you if Memphis could run the football and force turnover, they pull the upset, and they did. Crazy game at the Sim in Memphis. But we're here to talk about Lane Kiffin and the big one in the Vaught tomorrow or Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. But you're not wrong. I mean, right now that conference there with what's going on there with Memphis, that entire American Conference is unbelievably talented. A really good possibility that one of those teams will be there in the college football playoff. Mike, before we really dive into this Ole Miss game and talk about this LSU game, I want to chat about Lane Kiffin and this documentary. You mentioned that you had a chance to watch it. It had been overnight, or at least in the last 20 hours because it just got released. What are your initial takeaways just from what you were able to see from his entire career, and then of course now covering him at Ole Miss? What are your first thoughts?
I think you applaud a guy who at first wanted to do things his way and was adamant about that, and now has learned over the last few years that he needed to change and he needed to get the things around him outside of football in balance with everything else. One of the great things, and it was only like the last 10 or 12 minutes of the show, was how well he's become a dad now, and the thing that he wasn't able to do in trying to build up those ranks. Because let's remember, he was so young. Every stop that he made, really. I mean, you're talking about the Raider job, train wreck. You talk about then going to Tennessee and USC and Alabama and FAU. All the stops along the way, he really couldn't be a dad. I'm really impressed with what Lane has done, taking care of himself now and realizing that the periphery matters. Yeah. It's not just wins and losses. And I think that's why he's got Ole Miss on this trajectory of look out. Last year they were supposed to be a playoff team. This year they're not. But here they are 4-0. LSU comes to town. You beat them. The Mateer injury in the Oklahoma game a few weeks from now. Look out for Ole Miss in that playoff. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year.
It also shed some light to me on just how college football has changed. Not just Lane Kiffin changing, but the fact that he was at USC with recruiting violations and 30 less scholarships because of things that would be just it's a Tuesday today. Reggie Bush asked for money for his guys. It's just so normal. Did you end up watching it in the viewpoint of knowing and watching football for as long as you have and as long as I have, just how much not only this coach has changed, but also the coach and the game that he is coaching has actually changed as well?
Yeah, it's crazy, Gerhard, because right now, all the things that USC and Reggie Bush lost his Heisman for, all of those things, as you said, are now it's, okay, how much? What do you want to do?
No
You're
doubt.
leaving it. All of those things are silly to us now, but back then, but how about the fact that they told Kiffin when he returned to USC, oh, it's going to be a little slap on the wrist. And then all of a sudden he's hit with all those sanctions and still won games. But, the funny comments that Lane only does, like when he took the Tennessee job, we're going to beat Florida. Look what Urban Meyer's doing when he's calling my recruit on campus. And then, of course, the tarmac line. Yeah. He took the job. I mean, Lane, one thing that Lane Kiffin hasn't changed from the first time I covered him when he took the Tennessee job to now is he's still great with the media. He has the zingers and the one-liners. As a matter of fact, this week he talks about, hey, you know what? LSU's defense is great because they're getting what they bought out of the portal with the defense it's playing. And so all these little jabs, Lane Kiffin.
ROI is what Gerhard would call that.
Yep. What was that? I'm sorry?
ROI is what Gerhard would call that.
Exactly. But that's the one thing. A lot of times you got guys that don't want to say too much of anything. I mean, Gerhard, Patrick, we talked about Ryan Silverfield's little jab at Kirby Smart last week when we were on. Those coaches that give you those kind of things, and for Lane, it's pretty much every press conference. He'll give you something that we can really sink our teeth to. So that's the one thing about Lane that he hasn't changed and in what he does with the media, and kind of he really doesn't care who he's taking little pot shots at along the way. But it was really well done for 60 minutes. And the fact that Lane gave him that opportunity to do that. Because let's forget the other Netflix special that they went around the SEC. Kiffin was one of those coaches that said, I don't want to have anything to do with that one. I want my guys focused on preparing for the season. And yet he allowed that in-depth 60-minute piece. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I want to talk about that. Speaking of press conferences, the press conference that took place in Knoxville when he had a son named Knox, by the way, which Mike, what do you remember about that? Gerhard, what do you remember about that in current day? At the time, I was, in Northwest Ohio, not paying attention to the SEC and not caring. So my remembrance of what Lane Kiffin was at Tennessee was covering Alabama when he was back and just being back in the SEC, what that looks like. So I've only really had it on the after the fact part. But when you think about what those days, then you watch what was taking place outside that office when he held his own press conference and with the most bizarre, but honestly, from a TV perspective, I would not be able to quit recording. I mean, that's incredible. What are your thoughts watching that back? What were your thoughts in real time?
I'll go first here, Mike. I think one of the biggest things, because I was watching it as a sports fan at the time, and as a fan, you just thought, Lane Kiffin taking the USC job, of course.
Yes, it's natural.
Of course. And so I don't know if you were there at the press conference there, Mike, but at the time, looking back on it, I do remember the students rioting, but I don't remember the press conference really being that weird because I was like, okay, of course he's going to take that job.
Yeah.
But then he says afterwards, obviously, the reason why you go through what you go through to go to the new job and then go back and think Tennessee, that's the way to do it. But Mike, you might be able to shed more light there on that.
Well, obviously, being in Memphis, we covered Tennessee very well. I remember that night a little bit. I'm so much older, so I forget things. But I remember when he called that press conference, and you're talking about, 8:30, 8:45 Eastern time. So you're talking about 7:30, and we're almost done with what we're going to do that night. And all of a sudden, what? Kiffin's going to throw a press conference in Knoxville? I thought we were going to hear from him at Southern Cal tomorrow or the next day. So I think they hit on it right. You just never see it. And obviously, you haven't seen it much since.
No.
The guy who
not regular
tries to sneak out the door and say sorry, the fact he wasn't able to tell his players, I know coaches try to do that, but after they do that, they jet set and they say everything right the next day. So what I remember most is it wasn't that long, not a lot of questions, and then the aftermath of a fan base that was excited about what he was building, and then all of a sudden there's just that it's cut off. Now, if we play retrospect and we back up and we think for a second and say, hey, okay, if you don't take the USC job, where are we now with Tennessee and what he's done? Obviously, joining Nick Saban in Alabama really changed his trajectory to where it is now. But you kind of got to think about things because while he did well for a couple of years at USC, it never panned out the way it was supposed to. And you just wonder, had he used those couple of years, those 3 years on Rocky Top, how everything might have been different. But I think it's supposed to be what it is today, learning lessons along the way, learning from the very best in Nick Saban, going to FAU and having to rebuild your mantra and what you're all about, and then Ole Miss going, we're not very good. Let's go for the name, who I think can really change things. And here we are, lo and behold, he's really done well in Oxford and does not want to leave, as we saw, last year when Auburn came calling, and we saw how close it was. Had it not been for his daughter, maybe he is the Auburn Tigers coach.
Honestly, no doubt. I'm sure that Auburn fans are probably watching that and thinking, like, this is what they could have been, or this is what it would have been, and everyone replays the tape on that. I think that one thing that is very, very notable, and you see it in that picture right there, is his need for his dad at these stops, and then his willingness for his dad to say, I'm going to take my career and I'm going to put it aside because I watched my son fail. I mean, again, is he sitting here and saying this? No, I don't want to put words in Monty Kiffin's mouth, and obviously rest in peace. This is a guy who's had unbelievable success, incredibly well respected at every level of football. But he said, I'm not going to watch my son fail, and if he's going to fail, I'm going to be right there with him, and I'm going to be the one that's fighting in the battles with him. I'm not going to stand on the sidelines or on a different sideline, literally, and watch him, not do well. And he chose, he said no to several jobs, chose to go be an assistant college football coach with his son at several different stops. And I think that it speaks to not only the type of man Monty Kiffin was, the type of dad that he was, but also the type of young man that Lane Kiffin was in he really wasn't ready for that level, and he needed his dad to be there on the sideline for him. And then of course what happened at USC. I mean, I teared up watching that part where they discussed, his dad telling him, I'm gonna step down. I know that you need to fire your defensive coordinator. I mean, that was hard to watch a little bit, man. I mean, I'm a coach's wife, so I get particularly sensitive about stuff, and I'm a new mom too. So check every box when it comes to just let the waterworks happen. But I was like, that's hard. I mean, Mike, that was hard.
It was, but one of the things as a dad, and my kids are like y'all's age right now. They're in their upper 20s, and so I would do anything for them.
Yeah.
And I haven't done other jobs all because I wanted to be an everyday dad. And I think when Lane at his age got the opportunity with the Raiders, and you guys talked about it in the previous segment, and his dad said, I don't think this is right. And as any 31-year-old would do, mine does it to this day. Dad, I got this. Yep. I know. And that didn't work out. I think Lane realized, look, if I can have my dad with me, I'm still going to be the boss, but I have somebody that I can lean on both on and off the field, and he's going to know more about football than I ever know.
Yeah.
And to have that, and then to have a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator who has seen everything, including college football, say, you know what? I'm going to go help my son. And I venture to guess that most dads, I would, if my son needed me and I could do it. Yeah, man, I'll be there for you for your leaning post.
Yeah.
And not forget, a pretty good defensive coordinator. So it wasn't like Lane was hiring me to be the defensive coordinator. His dad knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But you're right. But as the head coach, when you're given that ultimatum of, look, dad or you, that's something I would hope my son would never want to have to decide, and Lane was put in that situation. But I think with the way things turned out, with Monty passing away a few years ago, Lane mentioned it. They were able to spend that time together. And even when he was a child, Monty always made him a part. You're talking about an NFL head coordinator, and Lane was always there. His dad always made his son a big part of his life, and that was the reason why he made the decision, I'm going to go help my son. Yeah. I've done everything else. So. And it was great to see.
And I think that because of who Monty Kiffin was, that there were coaches, i.e. Nick Saban, who Lane Kiffin to that point might not have done much, but I mean, no, make no mistake, Nick Saban is the type of guy who's given several guys a second opportunity. But I think that there are coaches who will say, okay, like I'm gonna make sure you're taken care of, right? And because of my relationship with your dad, or because of my respect for your dad. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. I think that's a great thing. You work every day as a parent, right, to help build a legacy, not for yourself, but for your children. And for him to be able to kind of reap the benefit, so to speak, in a positive way. Because at first he reaped the benefit in a negative way. He got thrust into a spotlight he wasn't ready for. A lot of it probably because of who his last name was, right? Going to the Raiders and then getting these opportunities. He just wasn't emotionally, experience-wise ready for it to go do. I think that to have a little bit of a payback in terms of like, okay, Nick Saban comes in, kind of revitalizes his career. He gets an opportunity again. I just think that like that's the type of legacy. That's what you hope to kind of hand over to your children someday.
Yeah, and I think the coaching profession has always been really interesting. I can't help but draw the parallels to what we're just seeing at Auburn with Stephen Pearl and Bruce Pearl, and what we saw in North Carolina and the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick and Steve Belichick, where you typically see son work for dad, and to see it the other way around, I thought that was just kind of just amazing in and of itself.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, sometimes it gives you it puts you on a platform that you're not necessarily ready for, but to have that helping hand there. And we talked about the parallels throughout this documentary. Patrick beautifully mentioned the parallel of yoga and being put in uncomfortable positions.
Yes.
The other parallel was, hey, I want to be there for my kids like my dad was there for me. I just thought that was really awesome. And Mike, I think that that family dynamic, especially in sports, is almost really unique that you don't see in almost any other profession, entertainment or anything else, where in sports it runs a nice cool through line where it brings families together.
The other thing, though, is remember a lot of times that family name will get you through the door. Like Pete Carroll said, I'm going to give Lane Kiffin this opportunity because I know his dad. But look, all of us know there's more horror stories of those guys who don't make it because of their family name. And think about what happened to Lane, the train wreck in Oakland. Then he goes to Tennessee and makes that decision. Now you got another fan. that could have easily spiraled out of control, and we'd be talking about Lane Kiffin at FAU or App State right now. But all of those learning lessons, and oh, by the way, somebody to talk to like Monty Kiffin to kind of look, keep it focused. You know what you're doing. And then you heard Nick Saban say, he was the right hire for me. Yes, I love Monty, but I wanted to change my offense, and the guy to do that was Lane Kiffin. So Dad's name, his family name might have got him in the door, but Lane did the work and then became an offensive guru to the point where the best college coach ever decided, yeah, I want him to revamp my offense. And then he took that experience, took his licks at FAU, and is now one of the top coaches, not in the SEC, in the country. And when every job opens and you're a Rebel fan, you're like, you keep your fingers crossed that, look, let's let him stay here. No, you told us in the documentary, Lane, you love Oxford, so let's sign that lifetime contract, like Rick Barnes did at Tennessee.
Well, listen, if people didn't love Landry Kiffin in Oxford before now, obviously the hard launch with her boyfriend this week might have been a little tongue-in-cheek, like, all right, but they better love him now, because he straight up said, this is a big reason that I'm still here. This is a big reason why I'm riding through this. And it's no doubt it's worked out a lot of successful seasons. And what they're now hoping for is take the next step into being the college football playoff. That begins with a huge opportunity this weekend. Mike, Sadie, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, guys, we're going to break down this huge matchup in Oxford between LSU and Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's role in that, what things have looked like offensively with a wild quarterback set up over there, no doubt, for the Rebels. We'll break all of that down here in just 2.5 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back into Southeast Sports Plus, a busy Monday as we rejoin you, Simone, Gerhard, Mathangani, and as we typically do here, about 2:30, 2:40 or so on a Monday, we chat with our guy, Roger Wallace, joining us live from Austin. Happy Monday, a big dub for Texas as they get the SEC slate, Roger, but Longhorns getting it done. Initial thoughts on the game?
Well, yeah, it wasn't what they did. I don't think anyone doubted they would do that to Sam Houston. It's how they did it. And that's one where they, for a week, they kind of closed the door on all the talk about Arch and his accuracy and all the things surrounding this team negative. They came out, they played pretty solid, scored on their first 7 drives. Manning had as many touchdown passes as he did incompletions, didn't throw a pick for the first time, and seemed to play with the joy that he's been talking about, Sark's been talking about, and probably a good formula going into this open week and then into SEC play, having that feeling going into this time off.
You used a really interesting word there, joy, and I thought that there's been a sense with Arch that he's handled everything really well, but I kind of questioned for a little bit just how much fun he was having. And Levon came on last week, and he brought up a great point, how he has said on multiple occasions, I had to talk to you guys in the media or whatever. It does feel like something has been lifted off of his shoulders, though. Is that the overall sentiment you take? I know that the opponent isn't something that you should really look too much into.
For a week,
yeah.
2 weeks in this case, but yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah.
If he goes down to Florida and struggles, then we're right back at the same conversation.
Sure.
Now, the competition goes to a much different level, so the nitpicking, I think, will be more about the result than about how it looks. If they go and win and they figure it out and Arch struggles, well, that's a lot easier to swallow for him than what he did against UTEP in a relatively easy win, but all the talk was what was wrong with Arch. So yeah, I think it's hard to play with joy when you're not having the success you thought you would, and then you have to talk about it twice a week in the span of 48 hours on Saturday and again on Monday. So no media today with the players since they're off this week. We did hear from Coach Sark, but sure, I mean he's human, and he was having a lot of fun, and he made some plays, and again, against Air, he made good plays that he missed in other games. So it's not just about who he was playing against. It was more about him, and the throws and the conviction that he had looked a lot different.
Yeah, conviction definitely part of the stare down that we all witnessed there on his rushing touchdown. Now that we have some sound regarding that moment in the game this past weekend, let's take a listen.
Felt good to get back in the end zone. Probably a little much there. My mom was pretty mad about that. A little immature, but I think it was some built-up frustration from the past few weeks. So the ref came up to me. I was so scared.
I love that. The ref came up to me. I mean, it's such a moment of humility. I think that, in the moment, you get wrapped up. Like you said, you get the emotions of, hey, just, get scoring a touchdown. He's obviously been dealing with a lot when it comes to just a lot of criticism and the spotlight and all. And I love that for him, just to kind of have that lighthearted moment. Roger, your take on that?
Well, you've got your coaches, then you've got your mom.
Yeah.
And
it might be the other way around.
Mom never goes away.
Yeah, no doubt. No question about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was good. I think it was a great answer, and I think again he admitted. And as soon as it happened, I said, "Okay, here we go. This is going to be the image from the game, no matter what." And sure it on, I flip on SportsCenter, and that's what we see: Arch standing over the Sam Houston defender, and I think he realized it afterwards, and he scored another rushing touchdown, and he celebrated with UT's other mascot, not Bevo, but Hookem, the dressed up Longhorn in the opposite end zone. Mm-hmm. But you could see it on the sidelines, maybe when he doesn't know or knows the cameras are on, just the excitement. And even after that touchdown, guys, and he got dressed down by the referee, and then he walked over to the sidelines, and he was gyrating and going crazy. It was almost like, all right, I'm in my safe space, but I'm still going to react this way because it's genuine.
Sure. In
the end zone, there could be choreographed, it could be this, could be that. On the sideline, people tend to look at other things, and you could still see Arch was a lot of weight lifted off his shoulder. And again, not saying that this does any switch flipping or things like that. I think it was just about that moment. And as he said, there's been a lot of stuff that's been built up, and it'll all be forgotten again against Florida one way or the other.
I know that social media doesn't speak for the head coaches, but they did tweet the play out, and they were like, "We told y'all Arch Manning got swagger." And so I thought it was a really like a telling thing. Like, hey, we like seeing this side of you. It felt to me that Texas wants to see this, and almost like it's not vitriol, it's maybe too strong of a word, but they love seeing this side of him.
Yeah, and I think that's what maybe catches some people off guard. And Sark mentioned that he thinks Arch is more like his grandfather, Archie, than his uncles, Peyton and Eli, way more subdued, especially Eli, who I think the mannerisms and even the looks a little bit favor him. But, yeah, and again, I mean, think about what we're doing here. Think about what everybody does. We're breaking down everything this kid does. And, we've talked about the sample size. So that's start number 6 in his college career. Who gets scrutinized like that? And I'm not just saying us. Obviously, sure. I'm in Austin, so I'm going to talk about it. We're an SEC show. We're going to talk about it. But it's a national conversation. I heard it on national radio shows today, which you would never hear about the starting quarterback at Take Your Pick University especially that's now 3-1, lost their only game that there was a question whether they're going to lose. So that's kind of what he's signed up for with that last name.
Yeah, no question about that. We know it is the bye week for Texas, and given the loss to Ohio State, this is perfect spot that they want to be in right now. 3 straight wins and some positivity in terms of what was going on with the offense. Let's take a listen to head coach Steve Sarkisian from this afternoon.
But I also need them to step away for a minute from football, just a little bit in general. We went 4.5, 5 weeks of training camp. We just played four straight weeks in season. They also need a couple days too to take a step back. I want them to put their feet up on the couch. I want them to watch football this weekend. I want to get the text messages from them saying, "Can you believe that guy on this team just did that?" Or "Wow, what a play by so-and-so." They're engaged, but yet they're not feeling the stress of having to do it. And that should make them feel a little bit re-energized on Monday when we do get back going and feel a little bit more motivated of seeing their buddies playing at another school, so on and so forth. So
I wanted to ask about the state of Texas and how big these 2 games were. We've seen some schools play the smaller opponents, and some schools refuse to play the smaller opponents within their state. How big was this for Texans available that were all there that might be UTEP fans and Longhorn fans?
Yeah, well, UTEP, it's a big deal. It's in the system, and obviously that's a program they play periodically. Again, Sam Houston was added when they made the move from the Big 12, where they only played 3 non-conference games, to having to add a 4th non-conference game. They did it in 2006 when college football went from 11 to 12 regular season games. That's when they were an FCS, and that was the only FCS they played, and they were kind of forced to do that. Minnesota was on the schedule, but they had to get rid of that ball game for whatever reason back then. But yeah, I mean, Sam Houston's in a tough spot. They had new coaching staff. They don't even have home field. They're playing their home games at the Houston Dynamo's home field while theirs gets renovated. They were 0-3. So I think they came in and said, all right, where's the check? We kind of know what we're in for. And for Texas, I think it was more about see if we can get right doing what we need to execute. And again, I joke, but against air. Because in practice, a lot of times they're doing it against air, and that doesn't mean they don't make some mistakes. So now they do it against Sam Houston. They get some good feelings. I asked Sark about confidence, not because of who they beat, but what they did in all phases. They scored on their first 7 possessions. Sam Houston didn't get a first down until the second half. They had a play in the kick game. They did everything nearly flawlessly except penalties. So that's what I'm talking about, not about the fact that it was against Sam Houston. It was more like against themselves. Yeah.
Roger, we're going to take about a 90-second break, and when we come back, I want to chat with you about the annual SEC opponents that got the early release from Chris Lowe of On 3 today. You had some predictions going into this big announcement, and it seems as though you were spot on when it comes to, as you always are, of course. We know Roger holding it down for us in Austin. We'll take a quick break and come right back with the latest on that. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. Simone, Gerhard, Roger Wallace joining us from Austin as we roll right along here on the show. We talked about the semi-annual, semi-permanent annual opponents, whatever the SEC is calling them. But the annual opponents for the next 4 years was early released by Chris Loeb on 3. And Roger, when you take a look at these teams for Texas, Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, the 3 teams that the Longhorns will have on their slate. And you can see A&M's on this one as well, LSU, Missouri, and Texas. Your thoughts?
It was obvious. I mean, I would contend, and not because Texas is any different than any other school, but these are the most obvious 3 games compared to another school where there may be 2 obvious and 1 you can tell me why, and then I could say, well, what about this school? And you could say, well, yeah, maybe. So these were the obvious ones. Obviously, Oklahoma, that was going to be their 1 if they didn't go to the 9 game. And then Texas A&M, no-brainer there, in Arkansas, the old Southwest Conference. And it's funny because I'm looking at these other Oklahomas, for instance, and Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You got me?
Yeah, well, we still got you. We want to pull the graphic back up. Yeah, we got you, Roger.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say A&M has Missouri on there. If you show OU, they've got Missouri. So again, Missouri's one of those like, okay, what are we? We're everybody's permanent
it's kind of like Vanderbilt
team that doesn't really make a great deal of logic other than they got to plug 3 in. So that's why I'm saying for Texas, it was a no-brainer just because of history and because of geography.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because I think that if you speak to some folks throughout the SEC, whether it be it fans or be it reporters, they would also have this argument of like, hey, this is obvious. This is who we should go with. These are in that. And that's not really how it played out. And so I'm not sure that anyone else who would say this is the obvious choice really got the obvious. But in terms of all the points that you just made, Texas certainly was that. I do think that it plays well that, if you look at terms of competition in current day, it seems like everyone got, hey, pretty hefty, difficult 2 opponents. And then that third one was, hey, we're not going to give you, like, you just look at Alabama, for instance, Patrick, you can pull up Alabama, maybe pull up Auburn. There's 2 obvious choices. And then there's Alabama could make an argument for LSU, certainly, but they're going to go with a geographic kind of tie-in here. Those are the 2 closest SEC schools. They're going to bring in Mississippi State, who just happens to maybe not be this super high-caliber opponent. So if you're looking at a Texas schedule, in Arkansas right now, obviously just coming off of the loss there, not exactly the highest caliber opponent as well. So there's going to be 4 years from now, will they reevaluate those opponents for Texas, or they're going to reevaluate it for everybody else? Will they make a change is another question, and I guess it'll be TBD on that one there, Roger.
Yeah, and for instance, Arkansas, they played that neutral site game at AT&T Stadium for so long with A&M, so that was a pretty good rivalry. And I think people might be a little bit surprised. But again, you can only do so much. And I look at Missouri. So Missouri's got Arkansas, they got Oklahoma and A&M. What do they have? They have all 3 of Texas's common opponents on their schedule for their common opponents. So yeah, that's my point, is that you can point to a couple for most of them that are obvious. And for Texas, it was just so obvious. Now you could have said, okay, what about LSU instead of Arkansas? If you're talking geography, yeah, that's about the same distance, but there's no history between Texas and LSU football like there is between Texas and Arkansas football. I'm not sure if they would say, well, Arkansas is a little bit down, so we're going to let Texas off the hook and give them. I think that just went into, okay, Texas, easy, plug and play. Let's move on to some other ones.
For the young bucks that don't really remember Southwest Conference football, how big is this going to be for Texas and Arkansas? Because I vaguely remember like just the history of those 2 programs and all the,
vaguely
names,
remember
all the names. That
you saw black and white pictures.
I just remember hearing about all the stories of like how many NFL guys it produced and how many coaches were coaching in this game that went on to great success elsewhere. How great is this for old Longhorn fans that understand the importance of the Southwest Conference and then rekindling this rivalry with Arkansas?
You want the honest answer, or you want? Okay, not that big a deal anymore for Texas, Arkansas. Well, here's why. Remember, Arkansas left. They were never part of the Big 12. So they were out of any sort of rivalry with Texas. They would play them in the non-conference periodically, but you've got to realize since 1995, they have not been a conference opponent. Now we're at 30 years since 1995. A&M until 2011, they were still playing them every year. So that's the difference between these 2. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas and Texas, they've got great history. If you want to go back to 1969, game of the century, President Nixon declared Texas national champs in the locker room after the game, despite the fact that they still had to play a bowl game. So way back history. Yeah, this was big, but recent history, this one, you have to tell people from the last two generations why it's big. And if you have to do that, it's probably not that big anymore.
Yeah, Roger, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much. Holding it down, as always, there from Austin.
All right, thanks, guys.
Welcome in, everybody. Hour 2 of the show, Southeast Sports Plus. Simone, Gerhard, Patrick joining you, and very excited. It has taken 54 minutes, 14 FaceTimes, 3 text messages from my phone, another 30 from Patrick. But without further ado, we have the one and only Jim Dunaway joining the show here in Southeast.
Contractually, I said I would only be in the first hour. I didn't want to do hour 2. If I couldn't be in hour 1, I didn't want to be in the show. So.
And we will make sure that Patrick gets the Venmo sent over right at the end of this program. Jim Dunaway, a friend of the show. And when we say friend of the show, I say friend of the show often, and I introduce everybody. This guy, I mean it. I mean it. Not that I don't mean it for others, but no question, it's the best friend of the show. This one. JD, good afternoon. At this point, we appreciate all of your efforts in joining us today. And of course, you do a great job there in Birmingham, have for a long time. It's been a very busy last few hours, especially around the SEC. How's your Monday going?
It's going great. Now that I'm, as a lifetime Mac user, I'm signed in. I'm ready to go, so I'm excited. It's been fun. I first heard about the plan here at Auburn, ironically, back during Alabama-Wisconsin football weekend, where somebody told me that, hey, Bruce is going to step down likely before the season starts. And I was like, oh, I thought we were past that. And they were like, no, it's likely going to happen if they can get the deal worked out for Steven. And so it's all worked out. And boy, if I'm an Auburn basketball fan, guys, I'm fired up about this. I mean, you want Bruce to keep going, but you knew, and I'm sure you guys have already discussed this, you knew eventually the end was closer. It was coming. Everybody ages out at some point. And so what's the transition? And the coaching staff that's been there, between Mike and Steven, the offensive and defensive coordinators, they've been doing a lot of work prepping for this time over the last few years. And Bruce has been turning over more and more of the day-to-day operations to those two guys, Bergmaster and Pearl, and this is just a perfect transition, I think, if you're an Auburn fan, to want to keep what has been going on the last 11 years to keep it moving forward.
When you think about Bruce Pearl, not just at Auburn, but also in Tennessee, and then in the gap years when he was in television, it just felt like at every turn he's just been killing it. He's just been doing such a great job in general. When you think about just what he means to the SEC, what he has meant to college basketball, how will you remember him before we speculate about his future?
I would say he's just a really good individual.
Yeah.
I would start with that. He lost his coaching gig at Tennessee for what seems like an asinine rule nowadays
really.
for barbecue. And he had a really good program going there. And, you know, he accepted what happened to him at Tennessee. And he accepted responsibility. And I really got to know Bruce during that time when he was off, because I was doing radio here in Birmingham at the time. And he reached out to Ryan Brown and myself, and he's like, listen, I don't want to charge you guys, and I don't want to give too much information, but he says, I want to come on weekly with you guys. I want Commissioner Mike Slive to know that I'm willing to work to get back in good graces with everyone in the Southeastern Conference. And I think he knew that a job would be opening up either in Tuscaloosa or at Auburn at some point. So being on the airwaves in Birmingham was a good thing. But more specifically, he knew the SEC commissioner listened to our show and on his way into work. And he knew that when he was on the show that Bruce Pearl, the guy who wanted another chance, would still be at the front of mind. And he took that opportunity when he had it to take the Auburn job, and he hit the ground running. Guys, I will promise there is no doubt in my mind, Auburn basketball was the absolute worst job in the SEC, and it was one of the worst jobs in college basketball, considering everything around it. They played in a mausoleum with no fan base that would go to the games, especially midweek, and he turned it into one of the, if not the toughest tickets in college basketball. He went to 2 Final Fours, and he did that. He did that at a quote-unquote football school. Yeah. He did an amazing job, and in all of sports, not just college basketball, not just in the SEC, you look at what he ended up doing with Auburn and where their place, their real estate, Baltic Avenue of monopoly of sports, and turned them into what Auburn basketball is now. I mean, you can go to any Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, NBA, college football. It is right up there with what Frank Beamer did to Virginia Tech to turn Auburn basketball into what it is now.
Yeah, and you see him there, Jordan-Hare Stadium, giving high fives. I mean, like you said, this is a guy who, from a media perspective, has done a lot for a lot of people's careers. I mean, I can speak for myself personally. I know our good friend Maria Martin has said a lot about what he's done. I mean, in a lot of ways, if there's people, if I had to name a list of folks who have like poured into my career, like you would be on the list, and guys like Bruce Pearl would be on the list in different capacities, but in the way of like, hey, like it's okay to kind of, see the person who's aside you or below you, so to speak, and help them get a ladder or two or a step up, and a ton of respect for folks like that. And it makes you think, okay, what is next? What is going to be next for a guy who seems to have a lot of energy on the bench? This is a guy who's like, doesn't seem like he's the retirement side of, hey, him going and hanging it up. I know he's going to roll into a different role there at Auburn. They announced that in terms of like the administrative stuff, kind of similar to what maybe Nick Saban has done there at Alabama. But any guesses on what the future looks like?
Well, you guys know, as a C student, I minored in public relations. Okay, so you don't announce your retirement. You don't announce your son as the head coach and announce that I'm running for the U.S. Senate all in the same day. Right? You don't do
Accurate.
that. Okay.
Yes.
So I've announced my retirement now, and Steven is the 5-year contract new head coach. He's not the interim; he's the new head coach. Yep. So at some point, if he is going to run for U.S. Senate, you announce that at a later date, because as West Wing taught all of us in the 90s, you don't want to fold a bunch of stuff into one news cycle. You want to spread that out. But if he doesn't choose to do that, which is a possibility, I mean, it could be a very expensive Senate race if he chooses to get in. and maybe the money wants to go somewhere else. I'm not into politics. If he chooses not to do that, Bruce has a laundry list of things that he wants to do with his faith, his religious beliefs, that he wants to contribute through that in the world. And that always has been, before the Senate opportunity was ever in the conversation, Bruce Pearl's final chapters were always going to be about his faith and giving back and pouring in, as you used that phrase earlier, not only into his faith, but through his faith into other people. So if he chooses to announce next week, we'll say, if he chooses to announce next week that he's running for the U.S. Senate, or in 2 weeks, then he is.
Yeah.
But if he chooses to just do the religious thing and pour into different communities faith-wise, then Bruce Pearl will be very good at that. But one thing you can count on is that he will be the best sounding board for the new head coach at Auburn, because he literally is a father figure to that guy, because it's his son. So, some of these guys who, want to say Nick Saban's doing everything he can to help Kalen DeBoer, but it's not Kalen Saban, right? So, Nick Saban's still going to do Nick Saban things and help Kalen DeBoer when Kalen asks for it.
Yeah.
Bruce is still going to be Stephen Pearl's dad. So he's gonna help Stephen when Stephen asks for it, and good chance are we've all got dads.
Yeah, he'll give him advice anyway.
That's right. He's gonna help Stephen even when Stephen doesn't ask for it.
Hey, you know what, Dunaway? You and Bruce Pearl have that in common too. Actually, neither one of you are my dad, but you trying to give me some. You trying to give me input on my life anyway.
Yeah, I've already offered 2 other ways to do interviews on your show today. Different apps.
We're gonna find one to make it work. Dunaway, while we've got you, wanna chat really quick, just if we can, about the semi-permanent schedule release that was out there from the SEC today. Just initial thoughts, if any, about kind of what it is that we're looking like. Now, our first graphic has both Alabama and Auburn on it. Of course, we knew the Iron Bowl, and we knew what 1 and 2 were going to be for both teams. What are your thoughts on number 3 for both the Tide and the Tigers?
Well, I mean, for Auburn, this point in history, if you've got Alabama and Georgia, I mean, that's traditionally 2 of the toughest teams in the country. So you deserve a Vanderbilt there. For Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, I'm surprised that Mississippi State's on there because of the TV partners. LSU has been TV gold for the last 17 years. It's always been a highly rated game, even before Nick Saban got there, all the way back to Bear Bryant and those days back there. LSU Alabama was a big game. So I'm surprised a little bit from the TV partners. But what I keep trying to warn people, and I've done this since we announced we were going to 9 games or hinted at it, is that those 3 games are the permanent games. They're not your schedule. So if you think, I don't know, Tennessee, since they've got Alabama, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt, you think, oh, Tennessee's getting off easy. Well, they're going to have 6 other games to go with those 3. And no matter how you slice it, if you've got easy games in your permanent, that means, oh, by the way, your other 6 are going to be hard because there's no dodging who the good teams are. And you're going to play 9 games and rotate through these home and away through the whole league every 4 years. And they've also built in the ability that these are not quote unquote permanent rivals. They're every 4 years. So every 4 years, we're going to revisit this. And if all of a sudden, if, Diego Pavia gets his 12th and 13th year of eligibility and Vandy stays good forever, then Vandy may rotate off of somebody's schedule and they keep dividing things up. So they're building in some nuance to keep these moving around. But this is the best way to keep rivals, which is so important in the Southeastern Conference, even for newcomers like Texas, to be able to have Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and now Arkansas. I would picture that never changing for Texas. Those are the 3 that care, that Texas people care about, and that takes them back to their roots.
Good stuff. Jim Dunaway joining us there from Birmingham. Host, of course, of the next round, a good friend of the show, longtime co-anchor. I had to, feel like I had to pretty much carry you most of the days we were up there, Dunaway. So you're welcome for that, man.
What I love about this is it took me 78 minutes to sign in, and we're only going to do 5 minutes.
It's only because we have 2 other guests that are back to back, but no worries. You have my login to get you on here, and we're coming back to you whenever it is that you'll say yes, which hopefully is often.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. I'm glad I could be the old guy today.
Dunaway, we appreciate you as always, sir, and we'll check back in with you as the SEC slate continues.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Good stuff. Jim Dunaway, the next round, BFF, mad because he's only on 15 minutes. Listen, I would have him on for 2 hours if we knew how to log into Teams earlier. So, guys, we're taking a quick break, and we will have much more to come here on Southeast Sports Plus. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. SGP joining you as hour number 2 rolls right along, and there will be a huge matchup this week between a battle of unbeatens in Ole Miss and LSU going head-to-head. And every time we talk about the LSU Tigers, we of course have to try to get with our great crew in Baton Rouge. Several wonderful reporters down there, none better than our girl Chessa Boucher, back on Southeast Sports Plus. Happy Tuesday, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Oh, we're hanging in. We are hanging in. There's a lot to get to. And before we even talk about football, because honestly, at this point, it's irrelevant. It's a top 25 matchup, top whatever it is their record are matchup, undefeated. I mean, all of the storylines. But there's nothing bigger than Lane Kiffin's daughter hard launching a relationship with LSU's star defensive player Whit Weeks. This happens last night, game week. Chessa, explain what on earth took place in terms of in your sports department when this news broke last night.
It was absolutely wild. We were like, is this for real? Is this, at first we were like, maybe she's just like punking us and like trying to play it cool and like play with her dad Lane. But then we were like, oh no, this is the real deal. Like they're together, hard launch. And I even like the comments under with Whit Weeks being like, oh, that's a cool guy or a nice guy or something. And then she was like, thanks, bud. Like they're flirting there. And then he posted it on his story and we were like, oh, this is for real.
Oh,
this is no joke. So, I mean, I think it's funny because she previously had dated Walker Howard, who was a former LSU quarterback. Walker transferred to Oxford. They were together. The whole rumor was that he stayed an extra year because we knew he wasn't going to play under Jackson Dart. Like, he was the starter. He was the guy. He returned, and he stayed. Then he transfers out. He's now at UL. So, obviously, Landry likes her some LSU Tigers.
LSU folks, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, when a girl's got a taste, a girl's got a taste. So how about that?
Yep.
I was just about to ask you, Chessa, what is it with LSU athletes? They become like celebrities. It kind of started with Joe Burrow, and then it went to Libby Dunn. done, and now we have Whit Weeks, who's like all these people who become national celebrities right out there, right out of Baton Rouge.
I can say one thing. I don't think that Joe Burrow and Livy Dunn were for the same reason. That's all I was going to say. But go ahead.
No, very different reasons. Very different reasons.
100%. She barely.
But they're known
the
out.
point remains. Yes.
But it's crazy, especially like Livy Dunn ended up dating Paul Skeens, and Paul Skeens was a stud in his right mind. Again, I agree with Eli. She's famous because of her what she looks like more so than her athletic ability, because she didn't do a whole lot.
Wasn't she kind of like an average gymnast, but above average in other ways that other people?
I mean, she played more than I did in college, so I can't really say a whole
Honestly,
lot.
probably me too. Gerhard claims these other people.
Other people is me.
I mean, other people's me too. I just want to try to be appropriate. Okay, she's good looking. All right. I mean, we're gonna do. I'm gonna lie about the show. We're not gonna lie about this. She's cute. So I mean, it does seem like the timing of this might be a little sus, because I don't know. You could wait. You could have done it before this week, and then it was like, all right, well, Monday of game week seems like a good idea. Bajang, post.
And you know what's wild to me? So last year when Ole Miss came to town, I'm shooting pregame, and I had never seen this before. And head coach Lane Kiffin walks down the entire sideline and is standing 5 feet from me, almost in the end zone for LSU while they're doing their stuff, and starts jawing with Whit Weeks and Braden Swinson. And I was like, that's weird. Like, one, I've never seen a head coach come down and like watch
jawing, like talking crap.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And so this is going on, and I was just kind of like, at first I took a picture because I was like, why is he down here? And then by the time I got my camera out, they were like walking away, but I was like, dang it, I missed this opportunity because it was such a moment. And then the hard launch on the week of, I was like, oh.
I mean, when I was younger, I would go out of my way to try to do things to make my dad mad. And so, like, if I could just put fuel on the fire, that's certainly a thing. Like, when you are young, I mean, it was more for me, like, in high school when I played for my dad. He was my basketball coach. And so if I was like, if I can do something to ignite a fire a little bit, I'm going to do that. When I got to college, I wanted him to, like, send me grocery money. So I tried to make him happy every now and then. But, but I think that they're doing probably fine in that category, both of them, for that matter. But what this takes a whole nother level of hilariousness, so to speak, when Lane Kiffin responds to the picture on social media and says, take the over. Like, hey, this is going to fire up his guys. It's going to fire up his play calling. Like, they're going to run it up, so to speak, on LSU. Lane Kiffin is so unserious. He's so unserious.
Yeah. Oh, and he's like the master troll too. Yes. I appreciate his canter and his back and forth. Like, I absolutely love that. If I was a head coach, that would be me. I would just have to keep it a little bit more PC, which I think he does.
Yes.
But like, he's just next level with the troll game.
I know.
So like,
I know.
I feel like his daughter might be taking a lesson from dad and be like, hey, you think you're good, but let me one up you, my guy.
Absolutely.
And I mean, she did it.
Listen,
hard launch.
he's witty. He's witty. There's no question about that. When you get ready for this game, I mean, at the end of the day, college football is still a business, guys. Like, this is still a business, and I think that right now you can be witty, right? You can be literally Whit Weeks. You can be the way he's being witty, and you can be witty in the way that like Lane Kiffin's being witty, because these teams are undefeated. But when the clock begins there in this game, like these teams still want to win. I mean, all jokes aside, like, there's a lot on the line here as it relates to being able to take a huge momentum shift. Now 5 weeks into the season.
Oh, absolutely. In this game last year, I don't know if y'all watched it, but it went into overtime. LSU didn't lead at all in the regular season. In the regular ball game, they ended up taking the lead in halftime and won the ball game with the touchdown pass in the end zone. So that's what's impressive. Ole Miss led the entire regulation, and then Ole Miss goes down, or LSU goes down and ties it up, and then goes and wins it on the touchdown pass from Garrett Nussmeier to Kyron Lacey. So this game was spicy 2 years ago when LSU went to Ole Miss. It was an absolute shootout. LSU had a chance to win it on the last touchdown play. It went through, I think it was Chris Hilton's hands, and it was right there from Jaden Daniels to Chris Hilton, and then got the upset for Ole Miss, and then the Ole Miss fans start storming the field, and there were even sections of the field where it was like collapsing because they were climbing on to railings and on like
sounds about right there for Baton Rouge. Yeah.
Yes, and they're just like storming the field, and I was like, for the love of God, I'd never been to a game, an away game where people are storming the field. So LSU fans are crazy, but Ole Miss fans kind of took it up another level. So I think this game is going to mean a lot. I know that I'm excited about the matchup with Lane Kiffin and Blake Baker. Lane Kiffin, we know, is a great play caller, one of the best to do it. And then Blake Baker, what he's done with his defense. I think they're an elite defense. They've only given up, like double digits, as in like 10 points or less through the first 4 ball games, which has not been a thing here in Baton Rouge since like 2020. So I'll take it any day. So, yeah, I think those two are going to be the guys to really watch to see how this ends up.
Absolutely. Jess, a few weeks ago we had you on, and the world was burning over there over the rumors that Garrett Nussmeier was hurt. It was like, oh, he's out for the year. And then you and Brian had that great moment. Everybody calmed down. And it seems like now there might be a somewhat legitimate injury. What's the latest on Nussmeier and maybe how that injury might affect his play this weekend?
Yeah, Brian Kelly brought it up. Actually, not this past Monday before, leading into last week's ball game against Southeastern, and said that Garrett Nussmeier was dealing with a torso injury, and everybody's like, oh, that's the reason why he hasn't looked the part in this or that. And then we found out this happened in fall camp. So he's been battling this injury. This is nothing new, but Brian Kelly said he's going to play against Southeastern. He's kind of over the injury. He's on the downside of this injury, so it's going to be a different play from Garrett Nussmeier because he is pretty much healthy. And he said that the only time he's going to actually be able to get back to 100%, that's after this week at Ole Miss when they get the bye week. I think what we saw from Garrett Nussmeier against Southeastern, I think it had to do more with play calling and what they were really trying to do with the offense. I think they were being a little bit conservative, being vanilla, didn't want to put too much out there, especially when you're going to play against a Lane Kiffin and Oxford where you need to maybe save some of those bullets in the gun per se. And so I think what we saw from him against Southeastern, almost had a perfect ball game, threw for over 200 something yards, looked the part. He looked like the Garrett Nussmeier that we saw from last year. So I think it was a combination of this offensive line clicking, playing as one, getting it out to the weapons and letting them do what they do. And I think that's what we saw, and I think that'll be what they kind of use going forward, especially there in Oxford.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. A 2:30 kickoff there in Oxford. 13th ranked Ole Miss and LSU now down to number 4 by no fault of their own, just a matter of kind of how the AP pollers are doing things, which, there's a lot of questionable situations with that we talked about earlier on the show. We did hear from LSU head coach Brian Kelly about this matchup as it relates to what they're going to need to get done and maybe where they're a little bit short going into this ballgame. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about, even the Clemson game, right, Jacques? You feel better about those games because you're taking a defense that can stand up against the environment, going on the road and all those things. And we're a much more cohesive group. The roster's better. The players are better. Those were good, tough kids that played hard for us. But, we're a little short in some areas. So we bring a defense with us. Now we'll have to match, obviously, I don't know about all the points, but we got to score too. Like we talked about last week. I mean, we can't, be scoring a touchdown or 10 points. That's not going to cut it in the SEC. So continue to play at the level that we have defensively, and then bring your offense up to the level that it needs to be to win games in the SEC.
So pretty clear cut, Chessa, there from Brian Kelly on what he believes it's going to take to be successful there in Oxford. What did you take away from that conversation? What does he mean exactly by saying that they're a little bit short? Is injury related? Is this depth related?
Yeah, so in the running back room, they already have just a handful of guys. Caden Durham, who's been their running back 1, he suffered an ankle injury. They did clarify that it wasn't a high ankle sprain. So LSU has kind of been shorthanded in that regard. I think what we saw from Juwan Johnson, had a big game. Juwan Johnson was recruited as a running back, came in, then played DB because they were shorthanded last year, then moved to the quarterback position. He leads the entire state of Louisiana with the most passing yards and passing touchdowns ever in history. Oh. So he's a phenomenal quarterback, but they recruited him mainly to be a DB and a running back. And now this spring he was in the quarterback room learning how to run the system as a quarterback as a signal caller. And so then this fall they were like, oh, just kidding, we're shorthanded with 2 injuries and a off the field incident with another running back. So they brought him back into the running back room. He had a breakout game this past fall game against Southeastern. I think he's got great vision, but I think Caden Durham has kind of gotten away from what we've seen. Rather than following his lead blockers and going the route he needs to take, he's been doing a lot more cutbacks, and that's been a lot of the struggles running the football. So I think Brian Kelly and them just want to be able to rely upon some guys, and I think having Caden Durham hurt and then having to go to Juwan Johnson and 2 other guys, and that's the only people you have in your running back room, you're a little shorthanded. So I think they're definitely going to need to establish the run, but I wouldn't be surprised if this offense looks a lot better than what it has through the first 4 weeks.
All right. Great stuff there from Chessa Boucher as we get ready for this huge battle in Oxford. Just for safekeeping, Patrick, let's just see that picture one more time as we go to break here. Chessa, how much is this hard launch going to play a role in this big game, sis?
I am not taking my camera off of record throughout pregame because I know something is coming in there either from Witter Lane, and I'm going to have it on camera.
You know what? And we can't wait to see it, especially if it's not game video. We're going to have it on the show next week. If it is, we can't show it. So get something in pregame, no doubt.
I got y'all.
Chessa Boucher, join us from Baton Rouge. Always doing a great job holding it down, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time, and we will catch back up with you after this big one there in Oxford.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Y'all have a good one.
See you, Chessa.
All right, good stuff. Whit Weeks. Lane Kiffin's daughter.
By the way,
they're
over under 55.5.
Take the over.
Take the over.
Take the over, coach says. Take the over. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are checking in with our guy Parker Ream from Waco as Texas A&M welcomes in an Auburn team who is not happy after going out west a couple of days ago and dealing with some really bad officiating. So we'll have the latest from the Aggies and much more. That's in 2.5 minutes. Stay with us. Well, week 5 of the college football season is upon us, and this one was circled on the calendar well before this week. No doubt about it. It's the big one in Athens, Georgia Alabama going to go head-to-head for control in the SEC as we roll right along with the Southeastern Conference schedule. Welcome in, everybody. Simone, Eli, Gerhard, Mathangani, Patrick Walsh joining you on this Tuesday, Southeast Sports Plus, and another great edition, another great 2 hours ahead, including 3 guests from across Nexstar Nation as we gear up for a big week in the Southeastern Conference. We have coaches losing jobs again in college football this week, Gerhard. It's really that time of season already. We're ramping things up, and it's getting serious.
We've talked about how the calendar gets pushed up a lot as far as recruiting goes, but also as far as it relates to coaches. And everybody talks about coaches that are on the hot seat going into the season.
Yep.
And that hot seat turns into an inferno this quickly. We've already seen a handful of coaches, including today, lose their jobs there. And so as the games get bigger, as do these decisions to get rid of these coaches, which I think is really, really interesting. But also, these games, if you're a college football fan, you got to love them.
Yeah, it is, no question. When you think about what this game all entails between Kirby Smart, Kalen DeBoer, Kirby Smart certainly has become kind of the new Nick Saban, so to speak. We saw that transition when they won back-to-back national titles. Nick Saban retired a couple of seasons ago, and it seems like Kirby Smart, if there is someone who is kind of still lingering from that traditional type of Nick Saban-esque old school coaching style, he is kind of the guy. However, Kalen DeBoer, kind of the newer coaching style, so to speak, maybe when it comes to softer tone and delivery, but just this week, some of his players have said, hey, there's been some changes in how he is communicating with his guys.
Well, and I think there has to be, because I think that his natural demeanor is one way, but if the results on the field are not mirroring what you want, then you have to change things up. Yes, Kalen DeBoer is a softer maybe by comparison, but you know, going back to through all of his years, maybe he hasn't had to be that hard coaching. Maybe this is, you know, changing up the way that he is coaching. But you mentioned Kirby Smart. He's cut from the Nick Saban cloth, like tooth and nail. He understands that wins in its certain circles. So he knows he's got a young team this year. He has to coach them up with that fiery style, but also understanding they're going to make mistakes. And so being able to balance that is the nuance of coaching. You can't just do it all one way. Every team's a little bit different, and he knows that firsthand.
Yeah, like I said, we have a stacked show. Patrick put in here that it's Taco Tuesday, and I'm just waiting for that to get delivered to the set because we're now at 3 minutes into the show. I've yet to see any tacos. So, Patrick, just let me know when that delivery is supposed to be happening, hopefully sometime in the first block because your girl is hungry.
Gotcha.
Okay, I've had to pick up a protein shake because I haven't even eaten yet. So, guys, this is all I have.
I've just ordered it right now.
Okay, great. So, we're expecting that to become sometime in the next half hour. We'll have that. Guys, here's a look at some other topics we'll be chatting about today, not just tacos, but all throughout the SEC. Of course, the big one there in Athens between Bama and Georgia. A lot going on with Tennessee. They will travel to Starkville looking to bounce back in SEC play for sure. Florida, a lot to be discussed with Florida. What is the latest on Billy Napier and the situation with the Gators? And is there a bit of a family drama going on, so to speak, with the Kiffin family? Have you seen this, G? Because this is okay. Well, at least some folks are looking at social media, Patrick and I, over the last 24 hours because weeks.
I knew the Diego Pavia pop culture, so I'll teach you one thing, you teach me.
Well, this is in the SEC, and if this isn't a tease enough, I'm not sure what is. But if you have not seen the latest in terms of Lane Kiffin's daughter,
Landry, okay,
and who she's dating.
And
the announcement that came at a very sus week, I would say.
And Lane Kiffin's response to the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. You know what?
Well, I saw Lane's. I was on Lane's Twitter the other day. I saw where he had Landry on there, but I didn't see anything about Weeks.
Oh well. You will. You will. And we're going to leave it right to that, guys. Let's look at the guests that we'll have today. And there's no doubt that one of these guests, man, I cannot wait to get her take on this. Chelsea Boucher, she's absolutely going to weigh in on what is going on with Whit Weeks and one relationship situation that's certainly happening in the SEC this week. KCK is going to join us from Knoxville to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. That'll happen in about 10 minutes. Parker Ream going to join us from Waco to talk about A&M and all the things going on there in the Lone Star State. Meanwhile, back here, further east, I should say. We're, of course, in the state of Alabama. All eyes going into this big game, and quarterback's really a big part of this discussion, Gerhard. We heard from Kirby Smart about Ty Simpson's development. Let's take a listen to what he had to say this week as the Bulldogs gear up for this big one against the Tide.
Well, I mean, Ty's different than Milroe. You said it. So there's a difference in that, but he's a really good athlete. Like, he's a tremendous athlete. He played in games last year, and you watch all the snaps he took, and he has 60, 70, 80-yard runs that are, running down the field, outrunning good defenses. So he's a talented player. I would say he's probably the hottest quarterback right now in all of college football. His 2 last outings, I don't know that I've seen an incompletion. Like, the ball does not hit the ground. He's been accurate. He's been quick with the ball. they're really hard to defend because of their skill. They've got tremendous skilled receivers, backs, tight ends, but you got to have a trigger guy that can get those guys the ball, and they do. And he's seeing the field. I didn't realize, in the Florida State game, it was as messy and sloppy as the weather was at times. Like we were playing a game during that time, so I had no idea until last week. You go watch, and you're like, oh, okay, it was a rainy, sloppy game. In the other games he's played, there's been no sloppiness. I mean, he's accurate, he's quick with the ball, he's a good decision maker, and has made some elite throws. So they're clicking right now offensively for sure.
So a lot to unpack there from Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, as they gear up for this game against Alabama. And there's no question that when you look at strictly the numbers, what Ty Simpson has been able to do in Alabama's last 2 wins, most recently against Wisconsin, you still have to consider who it is that Alabama was playing in those games. Yeah. However, like we've joked on this show previously, it's difficult to go perfect like Ty Simpson did a couple of weeks ago, and then to go near perfect against a P4 opponent is pretty impressive.
Yeah, if you go to practices, 7-on-7 practices, where you're practicing against the air, it's hard to go 17 of 17 for a lot of these quarterbacks. You'll have a drop here and there. So it says something about both things. And Kirby Smart hit it on the head. It says what the trigger man is doing, being able to get the ball out there, but also his receivers catching the football. Simone, in his last 2 games, he has 5 incompletions and 7 touchdowns.
That's insane.
That is insane.
That is insane.
And so if it was just one game in a vacuum, there'd be one thing, but he's carried it over. You mentioned it. It's not 2 great defenses, but if he could do it against the Kirby Smart defense, not necessarily that level of production, but just carry that confidence and that execution into it, I think he gives Bama a really good shot.
Yeah, there's no question that this is going to be Alabama's first true, not their first true test in terms of competition, but the first true, a good just bar of expectation. What is Alabama really going to be? Of course, the Florida State loss, I have to disagree with what Kirby Smart said, but then we have to keep in mind that Kirby Smart is going to talk like the coach who's gearing up to play this team this week, because that's the same thing he's got to be telling his guys, which is, hey, take them seriously. Hey, this Florida State game, it was sloppy because the weather was sloppy. No, it was probably sloppy because there was no effort from the Tide for most of the game. Yeah. And guys like Kane Womack, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, these coaches will say the same thing. So a fire had to be lit, and it did, and it was. Will that go ahead and change things going into the SEC slate as we really get into the nitty-gritty? Because right now, nothing has really been lost with that Florida State loss. And by the way, the Seminoles might be good. That might be one thing.
I'm going to take the might be off the table. I think they are. I think they're a good football team, maybe the best in the ACC.
Yeah, no question. And so I think that is going to be, there's no question it's gut check time for Alabama. Just a couple of years ago, this was a top 5 matchup. These 2 teams have gone back and forth in terms of national championships for a good while now. A little bit of a different situation as it pertains to being the 2 dominant teams in college football, because the landscape has changed, but the amount of eyes and the amount of attention and what can be won by winning this game there's no lackluster there. This is a huge opportunity for both teams.
Yeah, and I think even though LSU is the top team in the standings as it relates to SEC teams, these 2 are still considered the cream of the crop because these 2 have the championship pedigree and the history, as you mentioned. Now, there are 2 new coaches. There are 2 new quarterbacks in this football game, not from last year, but from previous years, obviously. And so I think with that, the names on the helmets and the jerseys still really matter as far as what they bring to this football team, this football game overall.
Sure.
But in my opinion, yes, I think this game will still go a long way to determining who comes out of the SEC, just like it will this year, just like it did in previous years when there were the East and West divisions.
Yeah, over on the other side, Gunnar Stockton is a name that it kind of came onto the radar late last year when there was an injury, of course, there at Georgia, and then we saw Gunnar go into the playoff games during the SEC championship game and do some positive things, and there's really been just a momentum shift for Georgia, for him at quarterback going into this season. Of course, they're undefeated. That notable game there in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, Alabama and Georgia, but I want to make sure that we note, both coming off the bye coming into this game. And when you think about that game against Tennessee, Kirby Smart was the first to say we shouldn't have won this game. At the end of the day, I think it speaks to what this team is all about, that they can win games in situations on the road. Granted, they'll be at home this weekend, but they have that toughness about them. They have been there, done that experience. That's going to pay off, especially against an Alabama team that, like you just said, has that pedigree and has that experience in playing tough games down the stretch in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a top-down approach there. I mean, Kirby will say that this is all the players who shouldn't have won that game, but no, that's a mentality thing, to be able to go down big and be able to come back and give yourself a chance to win the game. Look no further than the Alabama-Georgia game just from last year. Bama goes up big. I think it was 30-7 at the half. And then Georgia claws their way back and gives themselves a chance. Bama ends up closing the door. But they get themselves a chance in Tuscaloosa. Now the message for Kirby Smart is we cannot start in the hole like we've done in big games against Alabama last year and against Tennessee this past year. 2 different results, 1 game won, 1 game lost. However, it just shows you that it shows the guys on tape this past week that, hey, we cannot let Alabama jump out on us this year like we did last year.
Yeah, no question. And I think that for the Tide, you have to get off to a hot start. And that doesn't just mean offensively. It means getting stops early, being able to slow down Gunnar Stockton and all the weapons that he has there as well. Right now, 720 yards this season. He's completing balls at a 70% clip, which is impressive. Granted, they do have an SEC win, because I know that Kirby wants to give all of the credit to the other side, naturally.
Absolutely.
But who have they played is I want to say a little bit just in terms of, like, have Alabama really had a quality opponent? We don't really know what Florida State was in that first week. So on the other end, there is that Gunnar Stockton element. And we did hear from Alabama defensive coordinator Kane Womack about gearing up for this QB1 there for the Bulldogs.
I think they do a really good job with Gunnar in the run game. It's just enough to keep you honest. You see the run game at the right time, certainly third downs and red zone, and those are things that will always be the case for offenses. But he's a physical kid. He's tough. He's gritty. He's willing to get the yards in the read game. He makes the right decisions the vast majority of the time. And so, he has certainly brought an element to their run game that, maybe they didn't have as much with Carson a year ago. And I think that's something that, that certainly we're going to have to account for.
So it's not like that's necessarily the first play call for what Georgia wants to do, but I think that Kane Womack said it best. They're going to keep you honest. He's carried the ball 28 times, 124 yards, and 3 touchdowns this season. So it's not like it's a balanced approach from the quarterback position, but it is one of those, hey, good decision making, trying to not turn the ball over, making the right decision. And on the other side, Alabama has had issues with quarterbacks who do get left alone and get an opportunity to get loose, especially in the middle of the field.
Yeah, they certainly do. And if you remember last year, one of the big safety nets for Jalen Milroe was Ryan Williams in the passing game. And I wonder how much they'll rely on that this week, going into this week. But you mentioned it with Gunnar Stockton. He is not the main running threat that Carson Beck was last year, even though he does pose a threat there. But they have been bringing in all kinds of guys to help bolster that passing game. Zachariah Branch, who had a great game just a couple of weeks ago, and certain others that I think that if you're Kirby Smart, you feel like, yes, before we would just ground and pound, but now they feel like, hey, we can open things up a little bit here at home against this Alabama defense, and if we need to run the ball, we'll run the ball as well, and then test them the way Florida State tested them 3 weeks ago.
So before we go to break, because I know we have several guests coming up on the show, tell me, what does your betting mind say about a 2.5 point favorite for Georgia? I
think the line's just about right, because what this line is telling you is, and it's a little bit different depending on which book you're going with, but what the line is telling you is that on a neutral site, these two are basically even football teams, and it's almost a coin flip kind of game. So I think that any way that you bet here, you're not necessarily betting with strategy, you're kind of betting with hope that maybe whoever has the ball last will win the football game. And so if I'm betting, I'm probably live betting it based on the coin flip, who wins the coin toss, and then maybe just taking a chance on, hey, if this team won the coin toss, they'll defer in the second half, so then X team will have the ball. So Georgia will have the ball late, have a chance to win here. But the line, I think the line is very fair. They're telling you it's even teams here. And so I would stay away from an overall game bet. I would do more of a live bet than a game bet.
So that's what the betting side of you says in terms of, like, hey, okay, looking at this in a black and white way. Do you feel like the broadcaster side of you says that the tail of the tape, 3 games in for these two teams going into the bye, not going into this game, says that these teams are even across the board when it comes to what they're able to put on the field offensively and defensively?
I think Alabama at its best and Georgia at its best, yes, they are even teams. I do like Alabama's trajectory right now, especially if they're able to get Jam Miller back, and on the defensive side, be able to get Tim Keenan back. Both those guys have not played so far this season. This was the game they were targeting for Jam Miller. So if he can bring a true running threat with everybody else that they have in that backfield that has really been tested, and then on the defensive side, if they could have that Tim Keenan, that run stopper down there below, I think it really changes the dynamic of both the offense and the defense going into this one.
Really, really good points all across the board. Injuries or the lack thereof for Alabama going into this game certainly going to be a factor as they are getting guys on both sides of the ball back for the first time this season. Something to keep an eye on as we gear up for that big one, a night game in Athens between Georgia and Alabama. Meanwhile, Tennessee will look to get back on track after falling to Georgia, and they're going to have to do it on the road, one of the toughest environments, against an undefeated 4-win Mississippi State Bulldog team. We will have the latest on the Tennessee Volunteers and preview this big matchup with Mississippi State coming up in just about 2 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in, everybody. Southeast Sports Plus, Simone, Gerhard, Patrick, as we roll right along here on this Monday, a very busy Monday in the Southeastern Conference. Led the show with some big news regarding Bruce Pearl announcing his retirement, and his son Stephen Pearl will officially take over as Auburn's new basketball coach. So, Gerhard, when this news first came down this morning, I thought to myself, okay, well, the season's a good ways away, so this is a big deal. Of course, it's a big deal immediately. However, the season's so far out. It's really not. Practice has started.
Yeah. Practice has already started. And, I mean, the coaches right now are meeting the media for their initial, hey, this is our team. These are our new players and everything like that. The season is literally right here. It's coming up in the next few weeks. And so I think of any time this would have been a good time to do it, if there is a good time to do it. But and they probably had some dots, some I's, and cross some T's as far as it relates to Stephen Pearl and everything else. And so I'm kind of shocked that it did happen this fast. But no, you're right. It did shift things on the dime very quickly.
It really did. We have a stacked show today, guys. Several folks that we will be chatting with, including a good friend of ours, Jim Dunaway. If he can figure out on Microsoft Teams, he should already been on the show. So if he can join properly, we will definitely be giving him some grief about that here, hopefully in just a little while, to break everything down, not only with Bruce Pearl announcement, but also with the SEC annual opponents that just recently came out. That was not supposed to come out today. It was supposed to come out tomorrow, but Chris Lowe, now up on 3, somehow got the word early, and he released the information. We'll also chat with Roger Wallace. He'll join us from Austin, of course, KXAN. That's all going to happen here in the first hour to talk about Texas kind of bouncing back and all of that. Patrick, any update on our guy Dun Dun?
No update just yet. I just reached out again.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. So we'll keep things rolling. Let's just go ahead and take a look at the annual opponents, Gerhard. This is something that we were really looking forward to, the announcement tomorrow. However, we got the early kind of input out from Chris Lowe, which some folks are maybe saying, hey, could this be a distraction from the botched game there in Norman by the SEC officiating crew? We'll get to all of that here in the first hour of the show. But let's take a look at some annual opponents. Gerhard, your initial reaction. Let's just start with the Alabama Crimson Tide.
This one was interesting because obviously everybody knew the Iron Bowl was staying, and everybody knew that the Tennessee third Saturday in October game was staying. And I think if you are from Alabama, you thought that maybe Alabama and Auburn would split the Mississippi schools in some way, form, or fashion.
Sure.
But if you take it from a distance perspective, Tuscaloosa and Starkville, the closest one. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting there. I didn't know where they were going to go with Alabama. I thought that LSU might be the answer, but I think that what the league tried to do, if we look at this and as we go through the next few teams in a minute, but I think what you'll see is they stayed with the opponents that made sense, of course, the natural rivalries, and then they kind of went and found, hey, let's plug and play. Let's see what makes sense, but might not really be the most obvious choice here, or go sell out the game necessarily. Patrick, we can pull that back up as we roll back into what a couple of teams are. Arkansas is going to play Missouri, Texas, and LSU. Auburn, the Iron Bowl, of course, the game there against Georgia, which is the Deep South's oldest rivalry. I think that so long as you're Auburn, those are going to be those two games. And then they're going to roll with Vanderbilt there as an annual opponent for the next 4 seasons.
I think if you're Auburn, you're excited because you get 2 dates in Nashville, and you get to party with right before Auburn's game against Vanderbilt over the next 2 days guaranteed, because this will, as you see on that top line, it will be reevaluated every 4 years. So as of right now, 2 trips in Auburn, 2 trips in Nashville. I think it's really interesting that Auburn did not go with another one of their rivals. However, I think everybody is somewhat happy if you're an Auburn fan, because it could have been LSU, could have been maybe Arkansas, but it's stacked.
I said that too when I was putting this graphic together. I thought to myself, okay, when I first saw the Vanderbilt announcement, I was thinking, all right, Vandy, like why Vandy? But then I thought, if I was putting an LSU logo there, man, they've played those 3 teams for the longest, of course, because the SEC West Division, and even still, if those were the 3 annual, there would be some heck to be raised on the plains right now regarding the annual opponents and having a really rough road, because Auburn has had just that for quite some time.
There's a few teams that their natural rivals would make crazy annual opponents just because how difficult the schedule would be. I think Florida comes to mind as well if they would have had Tennessee.
Yeah, we had Florida up a minute ago. Pull that back up.
Well.
No doubt. And again, obviously there's things that make sense, but Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. Patrick, let's look at the next 4 teams that we have in terms of the SEC slate. And all right, here we go. So Georgia, like mentioned, Auburn, of course, Florida, and South Carolina. Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee and South Carolina. G, your thoughts there?
No, man, I think obviously you have to have the Deep South's oldest rivalry with Florida, Georgia, and the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I know they're still not calling that anymore with Florida and Georgia. I think both of those are really natural rivalries, and then South Carolina there to kind of close it out. So it looks like Georgia and Kentucky sharing South Carolina in the same vein as Tennessee and Auburn sharing Vanderbilt along with Mississippi State, as you see.
Good point. LSU is going to play Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. So a lot of if you think about location there necessarily, kind of what things look like in terms of geographics, that makes a lot of sense. A&M, is one of those teams that everyone kind of forgets about sometimes because they are all the way out there out west. But then when we added in Texas and Oklahoma a couple years ago, I feel like we kind of felt like they were part of the family again.
Back in the fold.
It's not like they're just like the weird cousin that's out there in Texas. They're still the weird cousin out there in Texas. They're not nearly. They don't have.
They're still weird.
Yeah, no question. They're definitely weird. And then State, of course, the Egg Bowl, Vanderbilt, and Alabama, which I think if you're State, none of that's really too far off.
No, yeah, and that's probably, I think most Mississippi State fans, if they were to take 3, those are the 3 they would take.
Sure.
Keep the Egg Bowl, play Alabama, and then you get your Vandy.
Yeah, no doubt. Patrick, let's take a look at our next 4 here as we're rolling right along for the SEC annual opponents. According, this is a report from Chris Lowe of On3, but have a good feeling that it's not like the SEC has made a big announcement saying none of this is right, so we're going to roll with this being the fact until we know otherwise. But Missouri is Arkansas, A&M, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, of course, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas.
One of the big things we talked about with Missouri is that whenever they came into the league, the SEC stuffed them out in the East. They had no natural rivals, and this is further proof of that because they had the Mayor's Cup this past weekend. They tried to make Missouri, South Carolina a thing.
No doubt.
The 2 Columbias, it just wasn't a thing. So this is more natural for Missouri, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Of course, the big one there between Oklahoma and Texas. You look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, that's not an easy slate necessarily. No. And again, I think that one thing we have to keep in mind as we look at these permanent or semi-permanent, not really permanent, just for 4 years opponents, is that everyone thinks about what these teams are in current day. And if there's no truer time than now than when you can completely flip your roster. You can completely flip what things actually look like in just from season to season, which is another reason why I think 4 years is a really good a good starting point. Does that change to 2 years in like a home and home situation after this 4-year evaluation period? I think that's probably a conversation that will be had here in 4 years. Do we change the timeline?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, we've talked about teams like Kentucky who had won 8, 9, 10 games, and now it feels like Kentucky's going to be the easy game. But who knows? In 2 years, they might not be.
Yeah, I know that we did have some coaches get asked about this, Patrick. I think we heard from Brian Kelly there in LSU. Let's take a listen to Coach Kelly, what he had to say about the annual opponents.
Brian, just how do you feel about the fact that LSU is not going to play Alabama on an annual basis? It's been reported that it'll be Arkansas as the 3rd opponent. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm fine with the way it's set up because within 4 years you're going to play them home and away. So, yeah, you might not get them every year, but you're going to get them enough where it continues to take the big game approach to playing Alabama. So the way the schedule's set up, I feel really good about what it looks like and all the teams that we're going to get a chance to play in the SEC.
I think a lot of people think the exact same way, is that, hey, these are the 3 the SEC are going to say these are the annual opponents, but it's not like you're not going to play those other games. And Brian Kelly essentially said that he expects Alabama to be on the schedule for, for the next however long. So I mean, I think a lot of people will take into this like, hey, these are three things we have to play. But I honestly think with the other 6 games of the 10 teams left remaining, you'll still get a lot of the rivalry games that you've been seeing over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. There's still 6 other games, of course, as the SEC shifts to a 9-game slate moving forward. Of course, that will beginning next year, and we are expecting tomorrow for the conference to release the actual full schedule. So the 6 other games, well, and their official releasing of the annual opponents as well. So we'll see really what the full slate looks like tomorrow sometime when they have their show there on the SEC network.
I actually had a game set up. I was going to tell Patrick this on the way in. I said, you know what, let's just play a guessing game with Tuesday being the day that they release it. A guessing game with all who we think that.
Chris Lowe said, don't waste your time producing that segment. No problem, Guy. We appreciate you, man. All right, we're going to take a quick break, guys, and we will be right back with more from the Southeastern Conference on this very busy Monday.